Today we're talking about the 5 reasons INFJs are slower than most and why we're winning because of it. INFJs will go through life slower. That's something we just have to accept. That does not mean that we cannot get things done in time. That does not mean that we actually create results slower, but our entire nature is a little bit laid back. Yes, they're INFJ workaholics, no doubt about it. But generally speaking, we do everything from this kind of stand. And the thing is this, INFJs actually are insecure about this. So many INFJs I've worked with, over the last 10 years, this is something they say over and over again. Like, I don't think I can do things as fast as other people. Whatever I take on, it takes me longer. I feel lazy. And the bad thing here is that once you see this as evidence that there's something wrong with you, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You actually don't start taking the steps you need. You don't get to where you want to go. And it just turns into this mess that you feel like you can't get out of. But the truth is, we actually will win because of our slower nature. The only thing that we need is to start seeing it as such and not make it mean anything negative. So today we're going to talk about the 5 reasons why INFJs are slower than most and why we're winning because of it, not despite of it. Before we get started though, I want to remind you the next INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp launches November 4th. So join our amazing community of INFJs who turn their vision into their INFJ Epic Life. I created a little checklist for you so you're ready to get started. First, download the free poster on the 5 pillars to an INFJ Epic Life. This is the basis of the bootcamp. Then, sign up for the waiting list to get access to the early bird price. And third, set a reminder for the free INFJ Epic Life Masterclass here on YouTube. It's a live stream, and I look forward to seeing you there November 4th. Everything you need to know, all the links you can find in the description. Reason number 1 why INFJs are slower than most is because we don't make rash emotional decisions. So many people seem like they are moving really fast, they're making things happen when the INFJ is still thinking about it. We're actually making sure that we're taking the right steps. Because at the end of the day, INFJs don't make so many rash emotional decisions. Like, people start doing things that other people are doing because they don't want to be left out. Other people might feel the urge to continue to grind and to make things happen because the people around them are doing the same thing. INFJs don't have that problem that much because we're not really triggered by those emotional things within us. We might recognize what is going on and we might recognize why people make certain decisions, why they make things happen. This doesn't apply only to situation in that moment as in, okay, the people around me have started, doing the work. I have to do the same thing. But it also comes down to decisions in the big scheme of things, right? So it's all about, okay, I have to get that job. I have to get that qualification. I have to get this thing done. Because so many people feel like if I'm not doing these steps in this time, at this pace, that I'm losing. Then it's, this evidence that I have failed in life, that I'm a failure, and whatever that might entail. INFJs don't tend to think this way because we always look at everything with a little bit of distance. We see, okay, I know that this is what society is telling us to do, but I'm already at this place where I recognize that just because people are telling me to do this, this does not mean that I have to do it. So we're actually disconnected from this thought. It's like we're looking at it from the outside. We understand the process, but we're not in it. And because of that, we're not making those rash decisions. Like, we have to understand, I've seen INFJs really get mobilized, particularly when there's something that's at stake that's really important. INFJs can make things happen. But in most cases, we choose not to. And we choose not to because we know it's not a necessity. So stop looking left and right. If people are panicking or doing things in a quick way, that's not an indication that you should be doing that as well. And it's definitely not an indication that you're doing something wrong and they're doing it right. Reason number 2 why INFJs are slow and winning because of that is because we don't give in to peer pressure. We just don't. We understand that things are happening, but this isn't just a matter of, oh, I have to do things quickly. I have to do things, in this order. No, just generally speaking, we don't play games that we don't feel like make sense to us. So many of the decisions that people around us are making, and they seem so, automatic. They seem like so evident. They are done because people feel pressure to do them. And we as INFJs look at them and say, how can they be so mobilized? How can they just get up, have all that motivation, have all of that drive, and I don't? Well, before we really get to the place of, do I have the energy as an INFJ? How much energy do I have? We really have to look at the motivation behind it. We don't have the motivation to fit in. There's so many things that people do that, gets them mobilized, that gets them, driven, and we just don't have them because we don't feel that pain. Remember, people are motivated either by pain or by the prospect of, joy and happiness. Those are the two things. And when it comes to peer pressure, it's mainly pain that makes people get mobilized. It's that pain that makes people take steps. We don't feel that. Like, we, again, can look at it from the outside and understand this isn't just a question of, oh, I'm making emotional decisions, but it's also not something that I do because I feel like I have to belong. So we're good at making decisions from a non-emotional place, and we're also good at making decisions that are based on we're okay with standing on our own. Like, we have to be aware of this. So many INFJs are not taking steps when others are taking steps because we're okay to be by ourselves. We're okay to stand alone. We're okay to take the road less traveled. It doesn't mean that people are more driven or that there's more life force in them. It just means that the pain that they're feeling might be just bigger than your pain. And pain in itself isn't necessarily an indication that this is the right step. You always have to think of this as an INFJ because so many INFJs really suffer from this. They think there's something wrong with me. People have the motivation, they're fast, they take action, they seem so driven, and I just don't feel any urge. Well, look at it from a different perspective. Maybe this lack of urge is a good thing. You don't have to do those things. You can make decisions that are not based on emotional responses and that are also not based on, I have to belong. Trust yourself that you're making the right decisions, even if it means I'm making rational choices and I'm okay being by myself. Reason number 3, why INFJs are slower than most is because we're cerebral beings. Simple as that. We're just not that action oriented. And so because of that, we're not going to take action just like that. There are other types who have different challenges, right? Let's say an ESTP who has the exact same functions as an INFJ, just in reverse. They have to make sure that they're not taking too many steps that are not getting them anywhere, right? They're all about action, 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 and they actually have to focus a little bit more on vision, and it would be better for them not to take actions all the time, but actually to minimize that in order to really focus a little bit more on their vision and then taking the steps. We as INFJs, we have a different challenge. Our vision is super prominent in our mind. We can imagine so many things. We actually get an emotional high from just imagining things. And so the action part, stays back. We're not taking so much action. And yes, this is something we should take on. This is actually what the bootcamp is all about. Learning that as an INFJ, we have to take action. Like, we just won't get anywhere without taking action. But it doesn't mean that we have to take action all the time. It doesn't mean that we have to do all the things. We just have to do the right things. So we have to accept the fact that, yes, we are cerebral beings. We get such an emotional payback from just imagining things. And so we're just not naturally inclined to taking steps in the real world. But this doesn't have to be a bad thing. Because of that, we're not taking any wrong steps either. And so because of that, we can actually create a great, balance where we say, I'm going to take action, but I'm going to take deliberate action. And because of that, I'm not going to make wrong choices. I'm going to be okay with, having failures along the way. That's part of the process. But I'm choosing the steps that I'm taking, and I'm doing this, and I make sure that I focus the energy that I do have on those steps. And it's totally okay. Like, I accept myself. Most of the emotional feedback that I get, most of those highs, I get through just imagining something. And so this initial drive to get something done doesn't exist. But again, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. You just have to first accept that this is who you are. And trust me, this brings so many benefits and so many advantages once you really lock into it. Reason number 4, why INFJs are slower than most, but are winning because of that, is that we have finite energy. Everybody has finite energy, right? This is, just like a little disclaimer here, but we as INFJs really have to look at energy. We have to look at, taking steps in the real world as something that is difficult to us. This is not something that comes natural to us to be always doing. Even INFJs who are all about, okay, they're taking steps, they're doing so much. Trust me, there's 80% more going on in their mind. The visions that they're having, the ideas that they're working on. Like, we're just rather focused on what's going on internally. And so therefore we know there's just a finite amount of energy that we have. And it just doesn't make sense to keep doing so many things that other people are doing, because we know we won't be able to do all of them. We know that we won't get anywhere if we're doing all of them. And so we really deliberate about what kind of steps we are taking. That doesn't mean that we're slow. That doesn't mean that we're lazy. It just means that we're deliberate. And the funny thing about this is, if you're deliberate about the steps you're taking, you can actually achieve that much more. Once you have a plan, once you have a strategy, once you know, okay, this is my vision, that's where I want to get to, and you've learned a system that works for you as an INFJ, then taking the steps, even if it's at a slower pace, even if there are less steps than others could be taking, that in itself will lead you, to places most people could only dream of. There are enough studies who show you that once you have a plan, once you have that strategy, you really are ahead of the curve like nothing else. And this is what we as INFJs have to understand. This is what we learn in bootcamp as well, which is we have that finite amount of energy. We first work on improving our physical energy to the amount that makes sense to us. And then we take the steps in the areas that are important for us INFJs. But more than that, we do this in a way that works for us. Not everything that works for everybody works for INFJs. And so once you understand that you do have a finite amount of energy and you focus on the things that really work for you, you remove all the obstacles, you remove all the distractions, you focus on the things that are important to you, you can just achieve amazing things, and they're all going to be on your terms. And reason number 5, why INFJs are slower than most, is because we actually work with pattern recognition. So this is something you have probably recognized when it comes to learning a new sport. This is probably something you have recognized when it comes to learning a new skill. You sit next to your friend and you both start at the same time. Chances are they are going to be faster than you. In most cases, this is going to be the case. Let's say you both have the same understanding of this subject. It's something completely new. Most people will actually start faster than the INFJ. Why is that? Well, in most cases, it's because we're actually focused on pattern recognition. So if somebody is learning how to multiply, right? They learn, okay, 2 times 3 is 6, and they remember that. Then they learn, okay, 3 times 5 is 15. They remember that. That's not how the INFJ works. What they do is they look at 2 times 3, they look at 3 times 5, and they start looking for pattern within this. So when they get this next question, which is 3 times 4, they can actually understand the process behind it. And they know, okay, now I know it's 12. When another person probably wouldn't know that, because others might have just remembered 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 5 is 15, and they just don't know what 3 times 4 is because they've never seen this. We are looking for patterns. And so, of course, you're going to be slower, and no matter what you take on. And this is just the way our brain works. What does that mean? It means that we will actually win. We will get faster. We will accelerate, and we will have an exponential curve. But we have to allow ourselves to really get there. So if other people are learning something like this and we're learning like that, it will take a while before the fact that we learn those patterns actually, become useful. But you have to give yourself that time, because if you go out there and you look left and right and the people next to you are faster than you, you might get to a place where you start doubting yourself and you might say, well, I am just slower. I'm never going to beat them. I'm always going to be left behind. I'm never going to achieve what I always wanted. But the more you trust yourself, the more you understand, well, that's just my process. That's how I do things. And even if I was slower than others, so what? That's just the way I am. Am I going to just give up? No. I'm going to focus on what I can do because these are the things that fulfill us. Like, I'm never going to have the drive that Beyonce has. I'm never going to be such a workaholic, ever. Does that mean that I have to compare myself to her and I will fall short in so many ways and so therefore I will feel like a failure? No, because I can only look at what my potential is. And when I challenge myself, when I get better at what I can do, if I improve and I go towards the things that I want to do, I get happier and happier and happier. We all are already at such a great level in our life. The fact that we can watch this video, the fact that we have a roof over our head, all of those things. Like, we have so much potential, and every single thing that we achieve after this is just icing on the cake. It's about time that we start looking at it from that perspective, that we start enjoying the process and understand that if we come to terms with the fact that this is how our brain works, there are great benefits to it, right? We're not like looking in areas where we shouldn't be looking at. We're not making decisions that we might regret. We're going through things in our mind and we're taking deliberate action. And if we, on top of that, trust ourselves that we make decisions that make us happy and get us to the place we want to get, we're golden. If you say now is the time, I want to embrace who I really am, I want to create everything that I always knew I have the potential to, then join our amazing community of INFJs who are doing exactly that. Our next INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp launches November 4th, so make sure to download the free poster on the 5 pillars to an INFJ Epic Life. Join the waiting list to get access to the early bird prize and set a reminder to watch the INFJ Epic Life Masterclass here on YouTube November 4th. Everything you need to know you can find in the links in the description. And if you want to watch another video now that is in line with today's topic, then watch the video on the exceptional INFJ learning curve.